The views and opinions in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Spectrum.
All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order for Monday, August 8th, 2022, special board meeting. We're going to start with a roll call. Okay. Go ahead.
Smith,
Here.
Becker,
Here.
McCoy,
Here.
Leighton and Warren,
Here.
Welch,
Here.
Lyerly,
Here.
Mills,
Here.
Okay, all members are present. Brian Mills will be joining us remotely. And then we need someone to meet, read the motion to go into closed session. Anybody?
I move the
go ahead.
board convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over whom the board has jurisdiction, and Wisconsin statute 19.851F to consider financial, medical, social, or personal histories which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of persons referred to, specifically to discuss the employment status of employees and to discuss the superintendent's administrative contract.
I'll second that. Do we need to vote on that? Or can we just say all in favor?
No, you need to vote.
You need a vote? Okay. Go ahead, Kinsey. We need a vote.
online voting is now open.
Go ahead and tell Kinsey what your vote is.
Kenzie, I vote in support.
You got to tell her who you are. I don't know.
Oh, Laura, Leighton and Warren, vote aye.
Okay, I'm waiting on Brian and Andrew yet.
I'm not able to get in yet, so I'll vote aye. I'll vote yes.
I also vote aye.
Okay, all votes have been entered and the motion has carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We will then adjourn across the hall. And we'll reconvene back here once that's finished. Okay. We're reconvening back into open session, and our next item is we have some action items. So I don't know, is anyone up to read some of these motions? Go ahead, Nancy. Start with number A, employment of staff.
Okay, I move that the employment of staff as presented be approved.
Second. Discussion. Okay, Kinsey.
Online voting is now open. Brian, are you able to vote online?
What happened? Everyone sit tight.
Brian says that the 5 o'clock meeting says waiting for hosts to start. This is still the 4:30. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we know if he's attempting
Yeah.
to join?
Do we know Brian's status?
I just texted him and said this is still a part of the 4:30. So
Okay, everyone just hold tight here. We're gonna work this out so Brian can vote. Should we proceed without him? I hate to do that, but
hopefully dial them.
okay, there he is. Brian, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, did you vote on the first item?
Yes, aye.
Okay, Kinsey, is his vote recorded?
No, it hasn't come through.
Okay. What's that? Would it be more expedient if we just all do voice votes, do you think? Kinsey, are you prepared to do that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Smith,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Leighton and Warren,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Let's move on to B, transfer of staff.
I move that the resignation of staff as presented be approved.
Second, no, that's, we're on B, transfer.
No, B is resignation of staff. Look in board docs.
I'm sorry, I'm working off of, yeah, sorry. Sorry, proceed.
Are you ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, Smith,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Leighton and Warren,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Sorry, I was working off an old agenda. So, Let's move on to D or C.
I move that the termination of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion. Go ahead, Kinsey.
Smith,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Leighton and Warren,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Mills.
Aye.
The motion has carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. That completes this part of our meeting. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Do we have to take a vote? Or can we just say all in favor? A voice vote? Okay. Kinsey, we're gonna do voice vote. Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. We are adjourned. Okay, welcome everyone to our August 8th, 2022 work session. We're joined by our interim superintendent, Vicky Byer, members of her cabinet, Macy Saha is here representing ICSC. And we're going to, I think we do need to do another roll call, right? Okay, go, Kinsey, can you help us with that?
Smith,
Here.
Becker,
Here.
McCoy,
Here.
Leighton and Warren,
Here.
Welch,
Here.
Lyerly,
Here.
Mills.
Here.
All board members are in attendance and we will move on to open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Okay, looks like we can move on then to the education committee, and that part will be handled by Andrew Becker.
I'm still getting switched in board docs here. All right, our first item is the assessment task force report.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Tonight, we're joined by Dr. Chartier and some of the team that were part of the assessment task force as required by the Board of Education. So I think, Nancy, we'll turn it over to you.
Sorry, Vicky, I shut you down. Thank you very much for the invitation. We're elated to be here. And exactly, we're here to report out on the progress these fine professionals actually led us through regarding our assessment calendar and our assessments, our assessment calendar, systemic assessment calendar. I'm going to allow my teammates here to introduce themselves, and if they please just share with the public where they are educators and what grades represent.
My name's Brenda Gosden. I am from Dan's Elementary. I teach second grade.
I am Ann Harswick. I teach kindergarten at Doty Elementary.
And I'm Sarah Schiller and I teach fourth grade at MacArthur.
And Judy Wiegand, interim deputy superintendent.
Thank you very much. They will be doing the majority of the talking. I'm just going to set up for you because I want to make sure that all of what we accomplish is exactly what the board has given us the task to do. You had set forth that you wanted us to, as close as we could, to reduce our assessments at least 25%. So when we got into this work, we did use the Department of Public Instruction's strategic assessment system, which includes formative, summative, and interim assessments. And once the team got into the work, we realized formative assessments, those are teachers' assessments. They use those to inform their instruction. So it didn't take us long after we identified all the formative assessments in the district to set that bucket over here and know, that's not ours to make decisions around. Those are educators' assessments. The next assessment type was the summative assessments. And those assessments are those that'll be your chapter tests, your units tests. So the assessments that come and are used with the district's resources. They're also our state mandated assessments. So we took that bucket and we put it over here. And then we focused our attention to what we have, what we call and known as our interim assessments. And so this task force worked diligently. I'm actually going to allow them to share their experience with you and what they went through and how they came to the conclusion of what they have chosen. And also we are prepared to answer any questions regarding ESGI and some of the adaptations that we had to make. Eliminating the assessment wasn't always the answer. Taking care of how we're collecting it and how we're storing it became really more of the focus. They will, I'm going to be quiet now because they are going to do the talking. They are closest to the work. So I know they're like all night we could talk this, but I got some really smart people next to me tonight. So go ahead. I'm just going to allow the board. Do you have any questions? The process, any of the questions or sharing with the public, what assessments that they chose to reduce and why they kept what they kept. Okay, go ahead.
I don't have any questions at this time.
No,
Go-
I'm going to wait until I hear what they've done. That's when I will have some questions.
Awesome. So you want them to explain just their, what, okay, go ahead. Anyone?
Okay, so we took each subject such as reading, word study, early literacy screener, that was a big one, writing, math, we took them all. And we looked at all the assessments that we were doing. And we decided which ones, based on like the survey that was sent out to the teachers and what they were wanting as well, what they thought was valuable. We looked at that. And then we also looked at what is necessary for, you know, we have to have stuff in so you guys know exactly how these students are doing. So we looked at that as well. And then we kind of narrowed out the stuff that was like double dipping. There's the same thing, just a different format. And we looked into how to weed out those things, but still give you the information you need on how the students are doing.
Yes, after we had narrowed that down, we also looked to see how it went horizontally across all the grade levels so that there was consistency that, you know, made sense that we, you know, to follow along. The other thing we wanted to address was like data input, and that's where we came up for at least the primary grades with the ESGI, which I think will be a game changer and take a huge weight off of the teachers, because it is a software that you do the assessment with it. It'll show like for kindergarten, so letters, sounds, the letter will come up and I can just tap the left or right arrow, yes or no, and it will do all kinds of magic. It will make graphs. It will send out parent letters. It will item or categorize, you know, every letter. I can click on the letter and see which students knew that letter, which students did not. There are so many things that I can do with that. So all I'm doing is giving the assessment, and it just is putting everything in a place for me so that I don't then also have to go into TSAR. So that was a huge thing. And Nancy did tell us that they were ready to change the way we were doing inputting each letter, since she said they heard that loud and clear. That was quite time consuming, but this is even better. It's besides being user friendly, it's data that you can use on, okay, do I need to make a small group, you know, to work on this certain area? So I think that will be, besides saving time, it will be extremely useful.
in the area of writing, that was the part that teachers were the most unhappy with that assessment. And so we took a look at K-5, and the writing rubric is divided into 3 sections: structure, craft and elaboration, and conventions. And so we took a look and we took out 2 of the sections and decided to focus on structure, but staying with the Calkins rubric and staying with the resources we currently use. So it's not new, it's just reduced.
With bridges and math, we give all the unit assessments, and then I can tell you in the typical year, we have every unit assessment, we put it in TSAR. There's just so much that we put into TSAR, so we looked at what we could go down on those. So we still can give the unit assessments and everything, but we're focusing more on the number corner. And the assessments for October, January and May. So we gave you the whole year yet, but picked out the best 3 to give you that information at the times you guys need it.
We also made sure like the psychologists that were on our team, like this was enough data for them for intervention.
Okay, do we have board member questions? Laura?
Thank you guys for doing this work. I have a question about within the report, it identifies that there were a certain percentage of educators in those different levels that didn't support the recommendations. Do you have information as to why they didn't support them? Was it they thought there should be more, or, I'm just curious of the reason why they didn't support the recommendation?
Thank you for asking that. And yes, it was either you support, you don't support, and any additional information and changes you'd like to see to the assessment calendar as we move forward and continue this work. It was all over the board, to tell you the truth. I was sharing earlier that we had some educators who weren't happy that that independent reading levels were chosen versus instructional reading levels, but they're used for 2 different reasons. And the body of our work was to know what students could do at a point in time independently. And so many of those questions, and I'm working with the teaching and learning department right now to code them. And what we'll be doing is putting them into our work this year to make sure that we address them. We had a couple bilingual questions, and I met with Gina, and that part of their outcome from their task force was once they got our universal assessments, now it will be the bilingual department will then determine which of these assessments that they will need in Spanish that better support their work, as well as to be able to show the growth students are making in the bilingual program. So they really were, to tell you the truth, all over the board. That's the information I have.
Brian?
Thanks, Andrew. I have 2 questions with this. Do we have an estimate as far as how much time has now been shifted? I don't want to say back to instruction, because obviously assessments are part of instruction, but kind of is freed up with this. And then also, how do we compare to, do we have an idea of how we're compared to districts within our county, and then also the other urban districts in the state as far as number of assessments and time spent on?
Yeah, I am going to answer the fact that I can answer that when we dug into the first round, when we met with the board and were asked about assessments, we did poll surrounding districts and other urban districts. I would just have to respectively go back and get that information if that's information that you're wanting to have forward. That I did not prepare that for this evening.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
You bet. And I'm going to let the educators talk about what they believe. There's no hard fact to what will be, but the ones that do.
So I taught in Kenosha Unified School District, another urban, for about 24 years before coming here. This is my fifth year, starting my fifth year here in Green Bay. So in general, I feel like this country does over test kids. I mean, you just heard Nancy talk about, we had 3 buckets of tests and we had long lists, and for a variety of reasons, but all the way down to pre-K. So, I mean, it'd be great if there was less emphasis on it just in our country in general, but Kenosha had quite a few as well. The difference when I came here and I was using ESGI there, so the data was automatically uploaded, and then coming here and then having to do TSAR, that was a huge time taker, and it takes a long time. Doing like each letter and sound, that could be like an hour, like after school. That was 1 hour that I spent just doing maybe letters, uppercase, lowercase, and then sound. So, I mean, it will ease a lot of that and take away a lot of time. But it was fairly close. I say there were a few more. We didn't have STAR. There were other things here.
I'm sorry, Ann. I meant from within Green Bay itself, how much time would we be saving with these recommendations from what we were doing before to what we were doing with these recommendations, not necessarily compared with the other urbans? It was kind of a 2-part question there. So Nancy, I appreciate you getting the information to me when you get a chance, but just within the district, any idea of how much time we'll be able to save or shift? I'm sorry.
Go ahead and start with the screen assessment. The amount of time that's going to save.
That's what people thought took the most time.
Yeah, that inputting of data, like I said, it could be an hour just doing a class set of inputting letters and sounds, which we won't have to do that anymore. There are 2 number corner assessments that we will not be inputting. So right there, there's a couple more hours there, plus the time. That's just inputting time. That's not even including the time it takes to give the assessment in the classroom. So that helps both for us to have more time to plan and prep for our students, plus then the classroom time. Yeah, the ESGI, I think, is going to be a huge time saver. A number of hours. That's hard to, sorry, Brian.
Nancy? And push your button, Nancy.
I want to understand about the new ESGI in working with the panorama now. Like the panorama was going to show us the whole child, right? Okay, so the ESGI, how is that working with that then? It goes right into the panorama, or do you know what I'm saying?
And thank you for that question. Because ESGI is going to be patched behind the scenes to go into Infinite Campus, so there'll be no teacher entry. Infinite Campus then is patched to go into Panorama. So the ESGI is going to be collecting the data on the required early literacy screener for the district. That data will be, as Ann explained, will be uploaded into Infinite Campus, and then Panorama, Infinite Campus feeds then into Panorama. And we just met with the folks from Panorama on Friday. We're pretty ecstatic about this because now we will have our early literacy assessment that's required by the state done just naturally as the way you do your work. There will be no additional data entry. And Ann is the expert on asking the collection and the amount of time that saves just really in the application of it.
Okay, and it's for kindergarten through second grade, the ESGI, that's it?
Well, I don't want to get too far in front of my skis here, but we did purchase it for pre-K. So because they also have to give the early literacy, but we're not meeting with the pre-K teachers until September when they come back. And then we'll have a task force committee with them. But this will be the tool in which we collect our early literacy assessment just because of the ease. And then it will then feed in and we'll have record for the Department of Public Instruction on our early literacy assessment.
Okay, thank you. And then the one that what you brought up about one complaint about the independent reading level versus the instructional. When I read that, I found that just reading that, like, what? I thought, your key always, you say, well, it pushes the instruction, it pushes the instruction, and then you take the instructional level away. And I understand about a point in time, but if you have 25 kids and you're looking at, their levels, I would think that instructional still would be pretty important.
It absolutely is. I'm going to let my the folks here that do that and collect it as to how they will be and still be using instructional.
I can definitely say that. As a teacher, that is huge driving force. The only difference now is we're not putting it in TSAR. We're still going to know what that is, and we're still going to give some of the assessments. I know I will personally give some of these assessments that aren't required of me, just so I can still use that data in my classroom. It's not going away. It's still there.
Also, so we used to test to the highest instructional level, and sometimes there was a gap between the independent and the highest instructional level, and those gap levels never got covered. So this will hopefully help with knowing where what your student has mastered and making sure there are no gaps.
Does it bother you, though, that we've been doing this for that long and we've had those gaps and we've used all of this time testing?
Like, are you thinking that by not focusing on our highest instructional levels, that we're not going to push our kids?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What I'm talking about is the universal curriculum is what I'm feeling. And I think it's so important that every child gets introduced to everything. And when you do these small groups, I feel that the strugglers never get caught up because they're not with the whole group, hearing everything, learning the background knowledge, seeing how kids respond to things, being included in all of these things. And that's why, I think assessments are important, and teachers assess all the time. And the younger your kids are, the more it's your teacher, you see it because you're with them all day long. And that's why I think the assessment thing is so overblown across the nation. And until we really cut back on that and get into letting children develop at their own age or their own levels, it's so important. When kids are together with their peers, learning with their peers, helping their peers, that's where the most growth goes. And as soon as you start giving a child a label, it can be so hurtful. And I think that's one of the reasons our behaviors are out of whack, especially in elementary. They need to be successful from day one, and too much testing. And so that kind of threw me about the instructional thing. The other thing I wanted to find out about was the actual 325 stakeholders were in on this. And, you go K5. So K5 stakeholders, are those like the interventionists and the coaches? Is that who those people are?
Exactly. That's who the K-5 group was. Also administrators. So those that served multiple grade levels were all your music teachers, your FIAD teachers. Everyone had an opportunity to weigh in, but that is the population that did fill out that K-5.
Okay, so then in the other two sections, the K2 and the 3-5, do you have a breakdown of like school-wise, like where there's some schools that were really, you know, responsive, like they broke down when we were doing the other surveys, you said, well, these people were from this school, like, you know what I mean? Or was it pretty much the same, a little bit all over?
Actually, it was a little bit all over. It was evenly distributed. One thing that I can add, I guess we didn't look at the data as to knowing to that depth. We were really going for who supported it, who didn't. And to be fair to those that took that survey, that's what we told them we would be doing with those results. And so I'd like to stay clean to that's what we will do with those results. In the work that we'll continually do and continue our work forward, we'll be addressing maybe some outliers there that weren't able to even take the survey, whether they agree or they don't agree. So it's just a snippet, a snap that we had mentioned to you before, that once our team was finished in making the recommendations, we then would resurvey everyone to ask whether or not they support the team's recommendations or they don't support. And that's really, I want to stay with what we promised that we'd use that data for.
Thank you.
Dawn?
So you had spent a bunch of time, I know, doing this work. What does this look like moving forward? I mean, how do you continue to assess assessments every year? I mean, you get new curriculum, it comes with assessments. I mean, what does that process look like?
Thank you for this opportunity to know that this work is never finished. This is ongoing work, and spot on, Dawn. There should be only two reasons why you change a systemic assessment system in a district. One, it's your state changes their curriculum, or they have a new requirement for, changes their standards, or there's a new requirement from the state that we have to now collect, right? So then we would have to go back and look at our assessment system to make sure that we are covering what we're required to recover. The only other time at a district level that you change your systemic assessment system is part of the curriculum renewal process. And so when we bring the curriculum to you and with the content essential documents, that's what they have to know and be able to do. We also bring forward typically a new resource in which the team has selected. I'm suggesting at that time, we add to the board, to the delivery of that we add. Now we have the curriculum, the instruction. I'm suggesting we add the assessment. Will there be a comment made in there? Will there be any assessments added, or what will now replace the next assessment? A lot of times there really is no change to it, but going through this experience, we did find some assessments that seem to find their way to our systemic assessment calendar that typically don't meet those two guardrails when you're governing the amount of assessments collected at a district level. Again, as they shared, there were a lot of assessments, a lot of formative assessments. Those are teacher choices. They choose what assessments they need to best measure their students' learning and follow their learning. And then, of course, the summative assessments, they're not, 90% of them are not under our control. We do not collect summative assessment data at a district level. They do at a building level for multiple reasons, but this task force really focused on reducing the number of assessments. And we really stayed to, and you all can add to this if you would please. It was hard to get our head around a 25%. So this was the statement we went with. We need to find the fewest number of assessments that we have to give to meet all stakeholders' needs. And they really stuck to that, like as they're guiding, do we need it? Who needs it? What stakeholder? And then the filter I have spoken about before, they really participated in system work and taking into consideration all stakeholders' needs, including our parents, our students, our community, as well as our schools. And as well as, we need student progress data for grant funding, as we had shared before. So this is what we are proposing. We had a wonderful day today with the secondary assessment retreat. And I was sharing with Dr. Regan, the next piece that we're going to do is we're going to bring a committee together of multiple stakeholders to define what assessment literacy is. Make sure that we clearly articulate the guardrails for using assessment and interim assessments. Again, I'm going to focus on interim assessments. That's really the only ones we have control over. Interim assessments in the district, and then what's going to be our check and balance so that it is a continuum. But you will note that in any new curriculum adoption coming forward to the board, there will be statements made if there's going to be any adjustments made to our assessment calendar. That kind of keeps it transparent, and then everyone can be part of the check and balance.
Laura?
First, I think it is really, really important to revisit this at least once a year. To always be on top of this, because this accumulation of assessments is something that I think our board is just sort of learning about. I've learned a lot in this process. One of the things that really kind of the umbrella over all of this is the sense of accountability from DPI, from political forces that look at public education in a way that is not necessarily beneficial to our kids. This accountability that everyone talks about, these assessments, they funnel that through these assessments, and it lands on the desks of our teachers. And they're basically saying, please, we only have so much time in a day. And is this really benefiting anybody? And this is sort of what this process has been about, at least for me. I don't want to speak for everyone else. So, but acknowledging that downward pressure that lands in our school districts, lands with us, it lands with you and the teachers, is kind of for me, the overarching point of how we got here. So I'm glad to see we're making progress. I know it took a ton of time. I'm grateful to the people who served on this task force. And I hope that going forward now that we will have just an ongoing process to always look at what we're doing, and always ask ourselves the question of, is this necessary? Does it actually help our students in the end? So that's my thoughts on that.
All right. Anything else from members? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move that forward for the 22nd.
Thank you. I just wanted to also mention a huge thank you to all of the task force members, the teachers, the educators that came forward and took this task on and worked the work. And really, y'all led each other through it to come to an excellent conclusion here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is selection of providers for community-based after-school programs, contracts that we need to look at and approve annually. And this is being proposed with no change to the mix of YMCA operated, Boys and Girls Club operated, and district operated, correct?
That's correct.
Any questions from members? All right, that'll be moved forward to August 22nd for a vote, and that concludes the education portion of the work session.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, operations, and that will be facilitated by Dawn Smith.
Thank you, Laura. The first item on the agenda for operations is going to be the consideration of revisions to the district org chart and applicable job descriptions. That's going to be Vicky.
Thank you, it is. And Josh is going to join me in a moment. As everyone is aware, we are facing a budget situation that requires us to look very closely at every opportunity that presents itself. And we also believe as a district office team that we need to model these decisions, even though some might be painful. So as positions are eliminated at the district office level, we've been evaluating those and found some opportunity that we'd like to propose to the board tonight for vote at the regular board meeting on August 22nd. So Lori, I don't know if you're able to pull it up. Okay. Oh, you're able to help, Josh? Thanks. I do want to point out, out of respect for the people that filled these positions that we're proposing we eliminate, I don't want to be disrespectful to the quality of work or the importance of the work that they did. They brought value to the district, and in that role, the role is there for a reason. But when we take a look at overall positions, we want to do the least amount of harm to our children down at the schools. So that is why we are proposing these changes. If the state legislature ever makes decisions that are more pro-public education and increase the funding to us, perhaps we'll be at a point again where we can add some of these items back. In the meantime, what we're proposing is that some of these positions be eliminated and the responsibilities be taken on by those that are quite frankly already overworked. But we're going to give it a try. So what you see in the document, left column shows the current position. Second column is the recommended change. The team did add some notes that you'll find in the third column. I won't read through all of those. And then the final column for clerical purposes to help us with the motion that we would bring to you on August 22nd. So to begin, Director of Assessment, our proposal is that we not backfill this position. Some of the responsibilities will be taken on by Dr. Chartier, who's just up here a moment ago, which means some of the things on her plate currently will need to be shifted as well or eliminated. This also, as I spoke with the team a couple of weeks ago, maybe months ago now, gives us opportunity to reprioritize some of our work and really focus on what's most important. And I'm hoping that through some of these changes, we're able to do that, to refocus. The second position, Director of Research and Evaluation, the recommendation is to eliminate that position. In that role, it was program evaluation and helped us with many of the surveys that the Board of Education is familiar with. With that also, we will spread out those responsibilities and continue to work with the board on who could best serve the role of helping to push out those surveys moving forward. Program evaluations will be taken on by those that facilitate the programs, supervise them. And again, we will do those to the best of our ability, removing bias as best we can. Associate Director of Summer School and Expanded Learning Programs, the recommendation is to eliminate that position. Dr. Chartier and her team will be spreading those responsibilities out. We are in the middle of summer school and that position was vacated several weeks ago. So Nancy's really stepped up to ensure it was a smooth transition and that the students and staff didn't miss a beat. They continue to offer our students excellent summer school programming. So a quick thank you to Nancy and to Gina. I believe Gina is the one also supporting that. So Thank you, Nancy, for making that smooth. Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, the proposal here, because you just heard some of the job responsibilities will change. We are recommending a job description update. What you'll find in all of the job description updates, hopefully, are the red lines. So you can see where we're proposing those changes. This will also mean updating the job description for the Director of Teaching and Learning Programs, as well as the Associate Director. Any questions about the teaching and learning part? Okay. School Leadership Development and Support Department. Executive Director of Secondary Schools. We are recommending that we eliminate this position. Along with the Director of Preschool Programs, eliminate the position. Similar to in Teaching and Learning Department, the duties and responsibilities will fall on others. So with that, we are recommending job description updates to the Executive Director of Elementary Schools. That position would actually take on the secondary schools as well. Andrea is with us here tonight. And just want to point out that she's actually been doing this work since, well, prior to July 1 even. And again, really smooth transition. It's Andrea has experience at the secondary level, so it makes it smoother than it could have been. So the proposal is to put those two positions together. Job description update and title change for the directors of elementary schools and directors of secondary schools. As we look forward, we want to be a more comprehensive department, considering pre-K-12 instead of just the individual elementary and secondary. We want to combine those so that our leaders have experience and that we have some continuity in our learning. Director of Innovative Education will be taking on some other responsibilities, so job update there. Oh, I'm sorry, that one actually not, it's just reporting structure change for that one. Director of Head Start and Principal, job description updates, and Associate Director of Curricular Programming. That one is just a change to reporting structure. Any questions about that department? Okay, student services. These are all just job description updates. And a title change, Director of English Language Learners, the recommended title change to be more in line with other districts and across the nation. Director, excuse me, of Multilingual Learner Programs. And the same for the Associate Director position. Any questions on that department? Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to Josh for technology.
Yeah, so what you see here is a reorganization within technology. This work started under the previous administration because you may have noticed during the pandemic, we had quite the influx of technology into the district and technology needs and support and all of that kind of stuff. And we wanted to make sure that we were staffed appropriately for the changing needs there, because I don't think that the structure has been closely looked at maybe like 7-8 years, something like that. So we did use ESSER funding to fund a staffing study that began last fall. They delivered the results in the spring. They actually recommended adding a bunch of administrative positions and then close to a dozen technicians to bring us in line with the industry. Our budget situation doesn't allow for that. So what we did do was we had an open administrative / managerial position. We took that we took that job and eliminated it, split up the responsibilities and changed some titles here. So you'll to align them more closely. So the department will be split into essentially 3 divisions. We'll have information systems with the supervisor there. We will have an operations supervisor and an infrastructure supervisor. In order to aid the change in the information system supervisor position, there will be a coordinator over central registration who will also start to coordinate some of the activities regarding professional development, training, and things like that for clerical out at the buildings. That information flow gets challenging at times. And then what we did with that administrative managerial position after divvying up the responsibilities, we created a school-facing position called an audiovisual technician, because we saw that as actually the most urgent need, was actually with classroom displays. And I mean, you see these TVs, they're everywhere now, right? And we were falling behind and having to contract out a lot, and adding that position. Changing the organizational structure saves money, but so does doing that work ourselves. So we get to kind of double dip there. And then the final recommendation there is to eliminate the position of the programmer coordinator, and just replace that with a regular programmer position reporting up to the information system supervisor. So any questions on the changes in technology? I know this is a lot of stuff, and I think we're not going to do this all at one time in the future, right? So yeah, sure. In facilities, we probably should have asked first, since we already have someone in this position, but the recommendation is to downgrade that executive director of facilities and related services position to a director, with the focus more directly on operations within facilities, with my position taking on some of those higher level tasks and responsibilities that the executive director of facilities and related services previously had. We do already have someone in that director position.
Thanks, Josh. And then for legal, recommended title change to the current student discrimination discipline and Title IX coordinator position to eliminate the responsibilities of discipline. It became pretty overwhelming. Alan's done an amazing job for us in that role, but taking on discipline along with the Title IX work was just too much. And then last, in human resource, we are recommending the elimination of the district leadership and professional development administrator, and combining the director of human resources and the executive director of human resources into one position. So not backfilling for the vacant executive director position. Mr. Becker, lastly, then on the last 2 pages, we're just showing what this looks like visually. So you'll see an example of the 21-22 organizational chart, and then comparison to what we are proposing. Oh, I'm sorry. I said Mr. Becker, but it's actually Ms. Smith. Sorry.
Vicky, do you know what the cost savings are for these changes?
Yes, we're currently at about $1.4 million. Yes, yep, good question. Oh, so that, well, yeah, I mean, we're eliminating the position, so we'll get the savings right now, and we don't intend to backfill, so that will be a savings annually. That is, so that includes the reductions that we're proposing, along with several downgrades. So we moved some positions from administrative to non-administrative.
Any other questions? Laura?
And does that, Vicky, does that number take into consideration not only salaries, but also benefits? Okay. Thank you.
James?
I apologize. I want to go back to the technology section. I just wasn't prepared. There was a lot of information I needed to process before going back. So the results of the study that you had performed, can you just restate what their recommendations were?
Yeah, there were a lot of recommendations. There were a lot of things that study did for us. And one of the things they did was a compensation analysis, because technology is one of those industries that is not K-12 specific, right? So when you're hiring for a computer programmer, you're out there hiring against Schreiber and Humana and, all the large businesses here in the area. The same goes with infrastructure technicians, things like that. So that was part of what we did was there's a compensation study. The majority of our positions are underpaid relative to, you're not going to probably be surprised by that. And then they also made recommendations for, I guess, a more efficient structure, which actually added administrators, which we chose not to take that recommendation.
Oh, sorry.
But with that, they had ideas for realignment within that plan for having those additional administrators. So we took some of those ideas and applied those to the reorganization within the department. So you'll see like a lot of reporting structure changes. For example, the programmers now reporting up through the information systems supervisor and things like that. And the big change is the reduction of the instructional technology coordinator, the creation of an audiovisual technician who will be out in the buildings and repairing things on site, installing things.
I just want to be clear. I'm trying to understand the basis for recommending an increase in staffing, and based on what would they comparing it to? I'm looking for risk, right? If you had a study conducted and they said, or fundamentally through the conclusion that you're not right sized, and they recommend increasing the size, what risk does the district take on by actually decreasing or not acting on that recommendation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so our comps were other K-12 districts, and there were comps kind of just generally in the private sector as well. I had been doing comps for the last 3-4 years, kind of talking to colleagues and thinking about, we talk about the student to device ratio, but I'm thinking about device to technician ratio. And we have right now, we have 6 technicians for 20,000 Chromebooks and 2,000 staff laptops, 43 sites. Yeah, we've been able to eke by, and part of that is we have some skilled people. Part of that is we contract out when we can't. I don't think that the board needs to be worried about a catastrophic failure due to our staffing deficiencies. I do think that we could provide a better service as a district in technology with more employees. I think we'd be able to retain better because that is something we've been hearing upon exit. And I would also say that that's probably true of all of the operational departments. So we can throw Lynette's food service people in that bucket, certainly facilities in that bucket. It's just, it's a lot of work in not many hands, and people wind up opting out eventually.
Do you see the same competitive pressures in those other operational departments, compensation wise, than IT?
Yes, we do. I mean, it is a little bit different. Facilities, you know, there are a number of different positions that have job likes in the private sector. In some we're competitive, in some we're not. I think Lynette would probably tell you, if you asked her, one of her biggest competitors is Green Bay Public Schools, because her food service workers end up aspiring to become monitors, and it's a higher per hour wage. So we see a lot of movement that way.
Okay, any other questions, Laura?
This isn't really a question as much as it's just sort of an observation that, so I've been on the board for 5+ years, and during that time, our administrative staff has had a lot of fluidity. People come and go, people change roles, people, duties get divided up and put in different places. And this might seem kind of abrupt that we're doing this now, but actually, I feel like this work has been going on behind the scenes in preparation for this budget cliff that we're heading toward. This kind of austerity is not just going to happen in Green Bay. It's going to happen everywhere. And until our state legislature decides to fully and properly fund public education, this is what we're up against. I'm speaking only for myself now, but this kind of austerity is just going to be part of the work now, and it's going to be a strain, and there's just no way to get out of that right now. So we can do this, make these hard decisions, and hope for better in the future, and hopefully it won't be the distant future.
Brian, did you have anything?
Yes. How many of these positions, Vicky, are currently open?
All of those that are listed as recommendation to eliminate are open.
Thank you.
The 2 technology positions are open right now as well. The downgraded programmer, and then the audiovisual technician. I know they just completed interviews on that.
Okay, any other questions? All righty. Thank you, Josh. The next item is B on the agenda. That's going to be the discussion of school start times. Vicky, that's going to be you too.
Yeah, thank you. And Chad, if you're comfortable, we didn't talk about this, but if you want to come on up just in case there are questions, I'm joined today by Chad Jensimo, Director of Transportation. At the June 13th work session, we had brought information bringing back the discussion about school start times. And I had outlined for the board steps that I recommend to determine if this is a direction that we can go. Number 1 was to confirm the additional busing cost to the district and review the budget to verify if this added expense is something the district can absorb. Since June 13th, Chad has done a lot of work reaching out to Lamers and First Student to get an estimate on the cost to shift our start time, and came back with the number estimate around $1.2 million for changing the proposed school start time, and that would be an annual expense. So we turn it over to the board for discussion and then direction on next step, and we'll try to answer questions you might have.
So Vicky, I remember one of the things that Brian had asked was for you to reach out to the other area superintendents and see if there was any interest in the other area districts. Did that happen?
It did, and it's the largest note on my sheet, and I skipped it. Sorry. Yeah, Brian, I did. None at this time are interested. Howard Swamico did say that they believe it's the right thing to do. They agree with us that it's the right thing to do. Their concern was that students have gone through so many changes over the last few years that he wants to hold tight right now, but look at it in the future.
Laura?
So several years ago when this, there was a task force put together with department heads, teachers, principals, students, members of the public to look at this issue. They looked at it, I want to say they had 14, 15 meetings. They looked at it quite extensively, and I attended several of those meetings. It was interesting, it was complicated, and about 80% of the discussion had to do with transportation and cost. And it's just a deeply complex a problem. And then of course, COVID intervened. The work was finished and there was a recommendation, but we never took it up because everything got taken over with dealing with the pandemic. That was the priority and that's what we did. So, you know, historically, I'm trying to look back to that time when this work was being done. I think at least I can still say that I understand that the science backs this. And I'm very reluctant to set this aside for now, because I think we all know that this is something that could benefit our students. But I cannot get around this amount of money. There's no way, especially after the discussion we just had. So again, I with reluctance, I understand that this is just not even viable right now, and I regret that because a lot of work went into this recommendation, and that's where we are now. So I just wanted to share that.
Andrew?
Thank you. I want to be clear when I'm saying this. I'm not questioning the work of our staff. I guess I question this worst case scenario of the bus companies. We are I'm trying to be somewhat careful here because there are things here that could go into negotiations of contracts, which for give and take reasons shouldn't happen in the public eye. But I do not accept as final the bus companies saying that it would cost $1.2 million more. There are things that I think should be explored. If it really costs 1.2 million, I might also say we have to wait till we see what the state is going to do. But I guess I would, and again, there are certain things that would be appropriate for closed session, which is why I'm being a little bit careful. But we have, you know, I'd like to explore in the proper setting at the proper time how much authority the private schools have, because Wisconsin statutes does talk about we take the lead in scheduling buses. Cooperation is nice, but there are some things to be considered here. So I think I'd like to have some discussion, and I'll talk to administration between now and the 22nd. We do have till December approximately to figure out if we could do this. And I think it was one thing to, it's good to ask the bus companies what they think. And then I think there's the appropriate time to tell the bus companies that as your largest contractor, as your biggest meal ticket, that's not meeting our needs. And again, but I do appreciate with getting this initial information collected. I appreciate your department doing that with enough time to have more discussions before next year would be off the table.
Nancy? One thing that really bothers me is that we really need everybody else all the other districts that we're doing all of our activities with to be on the same page with this. I think that's going to be a nightmare without that. And, I wish the area would get together and decide, about this. And I'm glad Howard Swamico is interested, but it's like, I think you need it all. You need all of those people on board for it to be feasible.
Dawn, if you could add me to the list also.
I'm sorry, Brian, what did you say?
Just if you could add me to the speakers list as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, do you want to go? Then Laura, you can go.
Sorry, Laura. I was just questioning as far as how much Green Bay Metro provides for our students and if there's some opportunities partnering with the city as far as transportation costs. If we know how many students we have that currently utilize the Green Bay Metro routes. And then if there's any way that we can communicate with the city more and see if we can collaborate, because I'm guessing they would like to increase their ridership numbers as well.
Sure. We do have an agreement with the Metro, and any student with a student ID is able to utilize the Metro at no cost. So it would just depend on the time of year and the interest in the student population, how many of those are actually going to ride. So anybody can get on the bus and use that. So that certainly is an option, but it is up to the student in some cases or up to the parent or guardian.
Is there any way that we can increase communication and collaboration with the city to find out if there's more favorable routes or scheduling or even design of the routes between, I know they used to have like a UWGB, NWTC routes that you could focus on some way of helping solve both problems at once with them. I don't know if they're a contractor with the district on that or if that just goes in with just the federal use or how that works out, but utilizing them as a resource as well, then building on that.
Right. I am in communication with the director on a kind of a continual basis, and certainly she's very what should I say? She takes the advice and looks at those, and certainly will add a stop where she feels it would serve the most students. The Green Bay Metro wants to provide service for students and adult riders also. That's what they're here for. And so certainly they're listening, and where appropriate, they'll add those stops.
Laura?
I know that Madison went through this a few years ago. I'm curious to see and hear and learn about how they did it with the surrounding districts, if everybody was on board or how that all happened. I'm not real sure. But I think if we know, and science shows, we know this is best for our students, we need to get more creative. And I'm with Andrew on the 1.2 million. I think I just need to, maybe we'll do a little bit more looking and looking for some creative options somehow to explore this, because I don't want it to go away. And I recognize internally the work that's been done, and I appreciate that for sure. But I think we're just looking at what are other resources to make this happen for our families. Maybe, as soon as we can.
Brian?
Do we have available ridership from the parochial schools and students that utilize vouchers that the district's providing? Is there a number available where those routes are going for us?
So each of the private schools is required to provide us students who are interested in riding the bus. And when I say interested, I mean that are eligible by state statute. So all those riders could vary from year to year, just like any public school eligible student. So certainly we do gather those lists. We have information on that if that's something that's useful, but certainly if we've got students that are needing transport to one of the private schools and we're required to, we do have to provide that that busing. So I guess maybe I'm missing the question, Brian, but is there a certain information that you're looking for in regards?
Do we have a financial impact that it's the cost that it's coming to the students, I'm sorry, to the district on? Are these students are usually on a regular bus route, so they're kind of jumping on, or is it specific buses going to them?
Brian, I think what you're asking is, do we know if there are students who are attending the private schools who have vouchers who would be a student in Green Bay that would also be eligible for transportation? Is that what you're asking? And we do not know who has a voucher. So we do not get a detail of which student receives a voucher from the state of Wisconsin.
Okay. A follow up with that, Melissa, do we know the costs for, if we're stopping at such a number of school, the added costs that we're paying for that or no?
We wouldn't be able to know because we wouldn't know if that student would be attending that private school with or without a voucher. Do you see what I'm saying? Like we aren't able to compare whether that student would be there with or without a voucher. So we're not going to be able to compare costs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else to say? James?
So I'm concerned. I recognize that the cost may not be 1.2, right? But the cost is something, right? And I guess I would like to understand what our threshold is for entertaining the idea or shutting down the idea after we just heard about austerity measures and the risk of, you know, lifestyle and balance with our staff. I recognize there's science that supports this. It's our start times are not new. So this is not an acute problem in my estimation. So if we said we can negotiate this to $500,000, personally, I'm still not interested at this moment in time until we understand if we're going to face a $36 million shortfall in a couple of years or not. So I'm looking for input from others where they would think that this would be a viable discussion at a particular price point, because I think we can all agree it's not going to go to zero. So where is people's threshold on this?
I agree with Nancy in that I don't see how this works if we are the only school in the area that does it. There's the cost factor, and I can't say, you know, $1.2 million. If that's what the buses are saying, I mean, we know that they've struggled with finding drivers. You know, supply and demand increases wages. If we add more routes, if we change the times, that's going to be, you know, additional drivers that are needed. I mean, I agree with you, James. $500,000 until we understand what's going to, until we understand we're looking at this huge deficit in 2 years, until we understand if the state legislature is going to do something with funding that's going to improve that. From my standpoint, I agree. I don't think this is acute, and I think we should be waiting until we understand what the budget's going to be in that 24-25 school year. Laura?
Can you say, I'm asking you to guess maybe what portion of this increase was linked to increased fuel costs?
So this is an estimate, really we're moving into a new contract this year. So we have First Student and Lamers Bus. And that's who we've had in the past here in Green Bay. So they're each doing 50% of our contracted service. By doing a start time change like this, as I outlined kind of in my little memo here, or the info that was put into our memo, it really does change the tier system. So what the tier system really means is that you can hit more than one school with a bus and a driver, right? So when the contract was put together, it was really reviewed and looked at as what we currently are doing and how it's set up. This certainly would mirror it in some ways. However, it will change it in others. So along with getting them to and from the school building at the different times that's kind of been outlined in the one scenario that was used in this current review and study to try to come to this point to bring something to everyone. It's to and from the school buildings, along with how do we get to and from athletic events and still be able to provide students the education for a full day. That's the real struggle, and that's where when this survey was sent out and the results came back, it's going to be hard to interact that piece also. So there's a couple fold with that. So hopefully that helps explain that a little bit.
Thank you. I think people, it's hard to wrap your head around if you're not familiar like you are with this every day, how truly complex it is to offer transportation to the students in our district who need it. And it's an amazingly challenging puzzle every day. So thank you.
So I also agree without all the districts being on board, it'd be very complicated because I'm a student athlete and we have very strict scheduling, especially with work too, when you start getting into high school. And to make it all work, I feel like most student athletes need to be on a similar schedule. And I know last year with busing for track, we were missing the last 2 class periods, most days that we had track meets because we couldn't get buses. So we'd go to the tracks and sit there for an hour that we could have been in school. So if you're adding different schedules with the schools on top of that, I think you would be missing more school. And that was always very difficult because for me, my last class was an AP class and you don't get to pick what class you have at the end of the day. So I was missing a college class 2 times a week. So I think that's also something to think about, is how much school students would have to miss if they were involved in athletics as well.
Thank you. Andrew?
I don't know that I can say a number. It would be certainly a non-zero amount that I would spend, and I would, if push came to shove, there are probably some areas that I would cut to more to make it happen. But I guess I just think another thing to look at here is it's a lot easier to push athletic time changes if you are the largest district in the area. If you're the smallest, I would say, people would say, either, take a hike or find your one home event is going to be based on your start time. Well, our 12 home events within our district are at this time because we have a later start. If the Green Bay, there might be some road meets that continue to start earlier, but perhaps people would see the advantages and start adjusting to the Green Bay school districts. I think there are times that being the large district as far as driving changes has its advantages. And I'm just glad we have a little bit of time before we have to decide for sure for next year.
Brian?
I just want to stress, I think that this is, let me put my hand out here, sorry. I think that this is definitely something that we need to continue to look at. I think the athletics and activities after school is something that we can definitely have a little bit of wiggle room, especially as far as game start times and stuff like that. I'm not questioning necessarily the services that we're receiving from the two busing companies. It seems like there's got to be some more creative solutions, and I just want to make sure that we continue to bring this up and not necessarily push it to the back burner. But
Okay. Is there anything else? James?
So what are our options and what do we forward to the board? Do we make an agreement here to continue the assessment, or do we allow people to go on record with a vote as to whether or not to forward the assessment? How do we proceed?
We had outlined in the memo that, so number one, confirm the additional busing costs and review the budget to verify if the added expense is something the district can absorb. If the board said, yes, let's move forward, then the next step is to consider staff capacity. So I would need to pull the team together and really take a look at what are the steps that we would need to do to implement this successfully. Then 3 is checking with Lynette and the food service to determine viability, staffing, budget impact. I know there were some concerns in the task force about that. Number 4, work with department and building leaders to identify and address barriers. Macy just mentioned one, so we would want to make sure that we had some type of coordination with the other school districts for athletics, but also covering instructional minutes, after school programming. We would need to work with our providers, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, to ensure that they would still be able to provide those services, and develop a draft implementation plan. And then step 5 was survey staff and parents to gauge support, because we haven't done that now since pre-COVID. So there's no motion involved with this, really just direction from the board. If we're willing to shift some funds around and cover the additional costs to move forward on this.
So would we be talking about this again at our regular board meeting in a couple weeks? Or is this our chance right now to direct the next, or to potentially take the next step? I think that's what you were asking, James, right? Like, what's next? Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what the path forward on this is either. I feel like nobody really wants to abandon this. Everyone understands the importance of it, but the viability is what we're dealing with right now. And I sense that everyone, well, most of us probably feel like it isn't a viable choice at the present time. But again, I don't want to speak for everybody. So if you do not feel that way, if you do not agree with that, now would be a good time to step up, or speak up, I should say.
Brian?
I agree with today it's not necessarily viable right now, but if possible, I'd like for James to continue contact with the district, I'm sorry, with the Green Bay Metro about, is there ideas or possibilities that we can work on this? I don't want it to necessarily disappear, but I recognize we have other issues and concerns that we need to work on. If that makes sense.
Andrew?
Yeah, I guess I'll say it a little more strongly, and while still trying to be careful about the fact that I think there would be a closed session component because it would involve renegotiations of something that already exists. I reject the $1.2 million number presented by bus companies, and I consider it unacceptable. And I think there's things that can be done, but which is why I wouldn't want to, kill this over the money. And there are other procedures that can be done with regards to private school transportation, but there is no need to do anything on it even this month. There's no recommended motion. So
I just want to offer a point of clarification. We are under contract with the two bus companies until the end of the 2027 school year, June of 2027. So if they're not obligated to renegotiate, and I'm not quite sure what that would look like because all of those terms and conditions aren't based on start times. They're based on the availability and the cost of essentially running a bus. So it wouldn't be, the numbers that Chad has given you is based on the cost of running a bus and the gas and the employment of a bus driver. So if the start times cause more buses to be on the road, cause more bus drivers to be hired, et cetera, those costs are fixed. So I'm not exactly sure what that renegotiation would look like based on the structure of the contract. And we have a contract until June of 2027. In addition to that, the statutes regarding private school transportation are pretty clear and unambiguous as to who we're obligated to transport and how that is required to be set up. So while we're supposed to engage in cooperation, there's been some very recent litigation that there really isn't a whole lot of veto power that public school districts have with respect to private schools and that transportation. I just wanted to add that as you think about next steps.
If I could just add, Andrew, I used the contract and the cost after talking with the bus carriers, made an assessment on what the approximation would be. So certainly that's how that information came in here as an estimate to bring forward.
No, absolutely. I think it was great work by your department, and certainly your department couldn't be asked to, and weren't in a position to tell them, try again. 1.2 is not good enough. Your department was in a position to take the information and their assessment of how many more bus routes it would take and their assessment of how many bus drivers, but there just are there could be a bigger role for, and I don't want to see us just keep going around and around on this. I don't think we need to make a motion on anything in 2 weeks, but I think there are things out there that can still be looked at.
So Vicky, is it an option to put this as an agenda item on a future board meeting so it doesn't get lost? What would be an appropriate time?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I agree that this isn't something that anybody's opposed to. It's just figuring out how we could make it work. And I am anxious about the next 2 years in our budget. Can we discuss that? I don't picture like every 6 months. It needs to be more often than that. And Chad is being asked to keep working with the transportation companies on the cost. So maybe that's where we start and see his progress there, and I'll bring that back at that time.
Okay, anything else, Laura?
Thank you to Melissa for sharing that reminder about the contract going through 2027. That's significant. But I think I agree. I don't, and to address what James had asked, I don't have a dollar amount either in mind at all. Just kind of, and I know everybody knows this is what's good for the kids. So I think if while this is continuing to be discussed, I wonder if a communication could be sent to those who participated in the groups, or some sort of communication to the community, just that, hey, we know this, you know, this is, we're looking at this right now, this is the cost, something, because I know when people put forth work in groups or surveys, and then sometimes they don't hear back, it's just kind of hanging out there. And I'm not sure if this has been done already, but I wonder if there could be some sort of communication piece about, here's why we're looking at it, we're going to continue looking at this, but right now it may not be an option, or just something to let people know where we understand the importance of it and have to figure that out.
Anything else on this one? Thank you, Chad. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item C, review of the GBAPSD school safety and security plans, which is a yearly review that we do. Vicky, are you going to talk on this one?
Yeah, thank you. This is annually required that the board in our next meeting approve of the safety plans, and Mr. Collar is joining us tonight in case the board has questions. A reminder to the public that you do not have access to these plans, and that is obviously for safety reasons, but the Board of Education has had time to review. So Chris, thank you for joining, and turn it back to you, Ms. Smith.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or any discussion on this at all?
I don't know if I missed it. Is there a red line available if there are any changes?
I do not have a red line available. Most of the changes that were made in this document were to upgrade or to update, I should say, titles that were in the plan. So a lot of the specific instructions for administrators and staff mentioned like who to contact. So I wanted to make sure that those titles were correct. One thing, this safety plan is required to be actually reviewed by the school board every 3 years. So the last time we did review this and approve it was in 2019. So it's up for that every 3 years by the state requirement. There were a couple of pieces that were added. One of them had to do with some cybersecurity information. If we ran into some cybersecurity problems, that gave some direction to the administrators and staff. And the other piece that was added was for unification of students. If we had to use be in that situation, there's a foundation called the I Love You Guys Foundation that has a pretty extensive reunification process. In the last couple of years, we've adopted that process. So it was a matter of including what that would look like into the safety plan so that people would be aware of it if we got to that. But most of what is in there has not changed. It's been mainly upgrading titles and getting rid of obsolete documents that aren't used anymore.
Okay, anything else? Awesome. So this we will vote on at our next regular board meeting. Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is going to be the review of the meal price recommendations for the 22-23 school year, and that is going to be Vicky and Lynette.
Yeah, thank you. Lynette Kino is here tonight, our Director of Food Services, to provide the board with the annual price recommendation for foods, for meals. It's not working.
Hit the button. There you go.
There. Fabulous.
All right. So did everyone receive the memo? Wonderful. All right. Thank you. What I do want to say is the past 2 years when we've been in the pandemic, it's been very interesting, correct? But also with our food service operation, it's been positive on the revenue side. And with that being said, I wanted to share the graph on the bottom, how our reimbursements we were receiving for each of our students. So with our families, with the students that were coming to have lunch, breakfast every day, we were getting the same reimbursements if they were paid free or reduced. There was no cost to any of our families in the district unless they purchased a carton of milk or a la carte. So what I wanted to share then also with you in this memo is what the reimbursements will look like this year. So as I did state in the memo, USDA has ended all free meals going out to our families for students that are attending Green Bay School District. So you will see there's a significant difference with our students in paid compared to last school year to this year of revenue will be coming in. For each meal will be a negative 10 cents. For reduced breakfast, it will be an additional 7 cents compared to last year. Free will be an additional 7 cents as compared to last year. Where we're going to see a huge significant change is going to be in lunch. For every lunch that will be paid is going to be going down 69 cents a meal of revenue compared to last year to this school year, 22-23. For the middle school, and well, I will say the secondary schools, it will be 39 cents a meal. Why we do have an adjustment of our meals at our secondary schools, an additional increase, is because of all the options that we serve. What we are going to be doing is we're going back to our full salad bars at all of our schools. And we also have special herbs that are on our menus. We have a spice bar that is at our schools. We really want to attract our students to come and eat on campus. Even if they do end up leaving, we do get some of those students who do come and pick up a, let's say if it's a yogurt parfait or a grab and go taco or something they can walk away with. But again, I want to stress that for those meals, we will be losing 39 cents. For the reduced meals, for every student that we will serve, we are going to be a loss of 13 cents for each meal. And for free, it will also, our reimbursements that we're going to be receiving will be 13 cents less also. So one thing I will say with our food service operation that I'm very proud of is that our fund, we've always been self-sufficient. We were always able to take care of anything that we wanted to do. But before I go into our wins, I would like to go in some challenges right now. Our labor cost is or has gone up 4.7% increase. Right now, I am seeing an increase of 12% increase on our food cost. USDA, I just received a memo this past week, last week, excuse me, that any of our chicken products are going up, and these are brown box commodity USDA foods that we do receive from the Department of Public Instruction that is overlooked by the USDA, that they are going up 8.1%. Our milk cartons that we are paying 27 to 29 cents a carton, they are going up to 30 to 31 cents plus a carton of milk. Our disposable trays that we do use at our schools, we were purchasing them at 11 cents a disposable tray. We are now purchasing them at 28 cents a tray. At one time on our intercity student council, we did talk about this, about biodegradable trays compared to foam trays. That was something that was really huge, and we discussed this. Now, with looking at budgets, foam trays are 8 cents a piece. So I want to talk about our wins now. What our wins with our food service operation here in the district is we're able to put in walk-in freezers and coolers in our kitchens. I get communicated to a lot. When I say a lot, it's a lot by our administration in our schools. They want new tables for our kids. And you know what, so do I, but I have to make sure that we can afford them. So you know what, this year, because we had a great year last year, we're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to upgrade our schools with cafeteria tables. With that being said, that is going to be a discussion that I will come to make sure you understand that that's going to hit the food service budget, but we do have revenue that we do need to spend in Fund 50. So that's a win-win. That is a win because we're putting right back into our schools and we're putting right back in for our students. Also, all of the food trucks that are on the road, food service pays for those. Our facilities department, maintenance guys and women, they use them, but that's okay. We're a partnership. We have Green Bay School District, we all work together, correct? So if they want to use our food trucks to move NEW out to our new location, NWTC, absolutely. We didn't have to worry about going and renting and moving trucks that are moving furniture that way. So I'm going to go back to Fund 50. Our program has been self-funded. And I truly believe that is something we need to celebrate. And that is something when I did put our increase together, that is something that I did look at. I needed to look at that. I did talk to my supervisor, my executive director, Josh DePau. I've talked to Vicki Beyer, our interim superintendent. Regarding this, how would you like me to look? Because I know how I'm going to look at the food service budget, but how do they want to see this budget? And they were agreeing with me that we need to look at all aspects of the program and how will we still have this benefit our kids in Green Bay. When I put the prices together and I looked at where we are at and looked at the 10-cent increase for each of the years that we did not serve. So that's 2 years. So the year where we did not serve our students, I was looking at that 10 cents. I was also looking at this 10 cents for the second year. So that's where we got that 20 cents. And then I was looking at this year, the 22-23 school year. That's 30 cents. And the reason why I am looking at a 30-cent increase is 1, everything I discussed, and 2, to be comparable to our surrounding school districts. We have students that are moving and going to other districts, but it would also be great to have some students when they come over to Green Bay and not question why, where we know the why of why we are at and where we need to be with our lunch prices and breakfast prices. Does anyone have any questions for me on that?
Andrew?
You know, for me, when I look at the meal prices, given what's going on with inflation, I mean, we have free is still free for those who need it. Reduced is still deeply reduced for those who need it. CEP still exists, right? Yep. So CEP provides beyond just only those who would get free lunch for 2 entire schools. So I mean, I don't see anything really too bad happening here. It would be nice if inflation was such that we could have just done nothing, but we provide good lunches here, and those who need it the most will continue to have the free and reduced benefits. So thank you.
Laura?
So Lynette, in the whole time I've been on this board, you've been running this department. And I know that historically, you have come before us and talked passionately about your job and the people you work with and fiscal responsibility. It's something that you have to always take into consideration. And our district has a spotlight on fiscal responsibility right now in a way that it's probably maybe never has before. So looking at this, I mean, yeah, I would like to not have to do this because, you know, of the families that we serve. I think we can all probably agree on that. But is it fiscally responsible? And is it necessary in light of all the pressures that are on our system right now? I just wanted to let you know that I see the work you do, and I've been watching this for a number of years. And you've never come before us with an ask that I didn't feel like was very much needed. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
James?
Just a few questions. So being new to this process, just need to make sure that I understand. You said that we were running a surplus the last couple of years. So I'm translating that into the 4.56 cents in reimbursement is not necessarily lunch costs. Is that a correct assumption or no?
Say that again, please.
Does reimbursement always equal the cost to prepare the meal?
There's a lot of factors that go into the reimbursements. With the reimbursements and any revenue that we are bringing in, we want to make sure that it is covering all of our meal costs, labor costs, putting money away for other incidentals, replacing ovens, any equipment, any of those, any revenue that is brought in, including reimbursements, is part of that. That is correct.
Okay. And we set the meal prices, and you just described that you just looked at the standard increases over the last couple of years, and that's how you arrived at $3.30. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
And the 330 plus the reimbursement, you're estimating that that will or will not cover food costs and all the budget.
It will cover the food costs. What I did do is back 2018, 2019, when we did have paid free and reduced meals for our students, that's the earliest data that I could receive. And with that data that I did get, we are going to be at 11 million. 10.9 will be breakfast and lunch. And the other revenue that will be coming in for our CACFP, that's our after dinner program. We also have a snack program, and then we do summer feeding program. So we will have an additional revenue coming in that will bring it a little up, well, up to 11 million. Now, with that being said, with the budget that I did submit, we have a break-even budget with that. So that is taken into consideration with any of the costs. So when I did talk a little earlier regarding the tables, that would be something that would be above and beyond the budget that I submitted.
Last follow-up. So the pain points that you described at the beginning of your presentation, they are accounted for in your budget. So you're still presenting a balance, breaking even.
That is correct.
So the cost difference between the 28 cents and the 8 cents That's just informing us that there's that difference, and we've made a conscious decision to go biodegradable, but it's not a budget ask.
Correct.
Brian, did you have anything?
Yes. So it's going to kind of go with 2 or 3 points with it. I assume that other districts in the area are experiencing the same increase in food costs and expenses that we would be having. And if the state were to assist bringing back universal, I'll just call it free lunch and free breakfast as we've had, where I know there have been discussions on that, following the same reimbursement policies that would obviously help the budget and help our and other area districts to kind of recoup a lot of this cost, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm hoping that our legislative committee and liaison has made contact with area legislators on the importance of this, and hopefully our superintendent has spoken with other districts and relayed the same message with them as far as the importance of the budget hits that we're having right now, and I'm sure Brown County schools are having as well.
That is absolutely correct. And I am on a monthly call with our representative, Christina Shelton. I am part of that group. And when we meet and I write letters on behalf of Green Bay School District that will go forward to Madison, and we do everything that we can possibly do. I'm even part of a network for the Brown County Food Service Directors that was started 2 years ago. And we are very active with getting our voices out to those who need to hear us. So I know that this is something that's very important. I've had numerous conversations regarding how meals are being served now compared to 2 years ago. To be frank, I think they should still be free to our families. We see it every day. We see it increase, so do our families in the grocery stores. So that's what's very disheartening, as everything that we're doing every single day, but we see it also at the school district that we just talked a little while ago, where public education, public schools, the way that we are looked at.
So this is something that would directly impact our families, and that there's possible solutions out there that once we're able, or I don't want to say full solutions, but remedies out there that there's an answer there and people can be informed of it. And I'm assuming, Vicki, that other districts are hearing the same message and forwarding concerns.
Yes, that's accurate. And Lynette did do a comparison with other districts, and she's done a great job of keeping our price lower than most of the surrounding districts. So I thank you for that, Lynette.
I will add to that what our free and reduced percentages, that does help us with keeping our costs lower to our paid families.
Okay, are there any other questions? Brian?
I'm sorry if I cut someone off. Have you noticed an increase in numbers as far as the students participating, and any, I don't want to say a stigma, but any students that may have been more uncomfortable coming out for breakfast or lunch before in the last 2 years participating in it? Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, no, it doesn't.
I'll pass on that question. It'd be easier
Okay.
to pass in person. Thank you.
If you're talking about students who are due to the families are free and reduced, because is that what you're bringing up?
I anticipate that there's more participation in students receiving lunch because it's offered to everyone. I think that
Absolutely.
the fact that we are able to do that as a society and that the government has helped us out with that in the last 2 years needs to be continued, and we need to do it in some way. And I encourage every member of the board and anyone else to contact someone to help make that happen. I've witnessed firsthand that the number of students eating and that we're able to provide nutritious meals to that may not have had it before because it's available to everyone is how it's an astounding figure with it. And I think that that's definitely something that helps our students be successful on many, many different levels. And encourage anyone that has an opportunity to help provide that to do so.
Laura?
I just wanted to add more of a comment than a question, but at one of the superintendent parent advisory committees that we had, Lynette came and I learned so much about our food service. I had no idea. And so I really appreciated all that you do, learning about it and the accommodations that you work to make for all of our students. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. It's my team too, though. It's just not me. You know, they're amazing. And I was talking to actually Sarah Noah today in the accounting department. And I was just telling her how proud I am. I have staff right now that are working 1.5 hours a day. They may be working their 13 hours in 1 week. And this is during the summer. And I know we're talking about meal prices, so I apologize, but it's just that that's how dedicated our employees are. And I'm very proud of them. And I know that the administration here in the district is very proud of them too. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you, Lynette. We'll bring this forward to the regular board meeting at the end of the month.
So I have one question. Can I ask a question? Can I get these meal prices out though? Okay.
It would have to be pending board approval on August 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty, our next agenda item will be under operations item E, semi-annual finance report, budget transfers, and that's going to be Angie Robley, Sarah Noah, and Lisa Bynum.
Good evening, everybody. Lori, do you mind pulling up the financial report on the screen? It's going to be hard to see, so I'd recommend that you have it up in front of you so you can see those small numbers. And I was at the table before. I was like, am I going to be able to read this? I might need cheaters at some point. The second one, I believe. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so tonight we're here to just present to you how we ended up as of June 30th, 2022. We'll just be reviewing some highlights in Fund 27, or I'm sorry, Fund 10 and Fund 27, which is again our two largest funds. The auditors will be coming in, so these are unaudited numbers for for right now, but we don't expect any drastic changes, but we'll let you know if something comes up that we weren't expecting. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Sure. Obviously, page 1 is the table of contents. Page 2 is a listing of all the funds in the district. I know you've seen this before, but we like to get it in front of you to remind you what each fund entails. And having been here 11 years, to be honest, it helps me as well. So, but tonight, as Angie said, we'll focus on funds 10 and 27. On the next page is the executive summary. The focus of the report that we're giving tonight is to compare budget to actual amounts for the fiscal year 2022 in funds 10 and 27. As Angie noted, and I'll say it again, these are unaudited numbers, but we'll certainly let you know if anything changes. Fiscal year 22 was presented with a balanced budget that was approved by the Board of Education on October 25th, 2021. During the year, the district spent $16.8 million of CARES money on various things such as summer school, the online school, technology, curriculum, and staffing costs. All salary expenditures in the report reflect step and lane movements with a consumer price index increase of 1.23%. In funds 10 and 27, the salaries and benefits accounted for approximately 70% of the operating expenditures. A year-end transfer of $2.9 million was done for the first time this year from Fund 10 to Fund 73 to start addressing the pension liability for the district's emeritus program. That liability is approximately $29 million. This transfer was done to maximize the amount that can be used for shared costs in the calculation of equalized aid. Also during the fiscal year, the district paid off the majority of its remaining debt obligations, allowing the opportunity to go out for a capital referendum, as you know, in November. The district has saved over $14 million in interest. I'll slow down, $14 million in interest expense by prepaying debt since 2006. And of that, $12.7 million was saved by prepaying the 2016-17 referendum debt.
So this is the page I was talking about. Sorry about those folks in the audience. So this is our revenue dashboard. So this again is showing us Fund 10 and Fund 27 combined, which is a little bit different than what you see when we come to you in October. So just keep that in mind that they're both together, just because we've got that significant funding from Fund 10 to Fund 27. So we really do we treat Fund 10 and Fund 27 as one when we're reporting to DPI and to the state. So actual year-to-date total revenues this year came in a little bit over what we had anticipated, about 3%. What I want to focus on here is the top 10 sources of revenue. So this kind of lists all of the things that are coming into Fund 10 and Fund 27, but the big players in this fund are really the three: equalized aid, which is $173 million this year, property taxes at $63.7 million, and then also that per pupil aid, which is about the fifth one in. That's that $742 that we receive per student. That's outside of the revenue limit, but it is significant what we receive as a district. So that was about $15.3 million. So together, just to put it into perspective, that's 83% of our Fund 10 budget. So the rest of the funds that are coming in, of course, really attribute to our federal funds coming in. So ESSER is included in here. So that's the 16 million that Sarah just spoke about. And then also our aid coming in for special ed, which was about 12 million, I believe. Yep, 12.4 million. And then some of the other federal aid. But again, if we look at that revenues by source, so that graph right to the right of it, what you can see is the local bar graph compared. So current year compared to prior year, you can see that the tax amount, really that's our taxes, our property taxes, that has decreased slightly. But then when you move over to that state bar graph, that increased. So really what that's showing us is, if you recall in 21-22, the state legislature put money into our equalized aid bucket. So essentially all that did for us was it was property tax relief. So it's an inverse relationship. We didn't receive any more money to spend in the classroom. It really was just an inverse. The more equalized aid you get, the less property taxes you get, same amount of money. So I think that that's reflected here, and it's important to note because you'll probably see it again when we come to you in October.
Angie, if I could just interrupt for a second, because I think that's a really important point. There seems to be some confusion that that actually meant more money to the public schools. But what you're saying is that's not in fact the truth.
That's correct, Vicki. So it definitely gets skewed, right? Because they did put money into, into education technically, because they put it into that equalized aid pot. But because they didn't give it to us on our per pupil, our per pupil, say we got $10,000 per pupil, because we didn't get it there, that means that we didn't get any more money as a district, and that was throughout the state. Okay, so moving on to expenditures. So again, if you look at that second, I guess that second graph that shows our actual year-to-date total expenditures actually came in a little bit more or over budget than what we had expected by 2%. But that's okay, because remember, I just said that we came in a little bit more in revenue, so that was offset. So we didn't see, we're still in the black, which is always good news. So when you look at the top 10 expenditures, again, the top 3 curriculum, so, salaries out to the students, that's about 43% of our budget. And then listed there, we have that purchased instructional services. So it's, I don't know, the 7th one down at about 29.4 million. So I want to break that down a little bit, because when we talk about purchase services, I think there's some confusion that we think it's contracted service, like outside things, right? Like garbage disposal, things like that. But really what's included in that number, and if you look over on that expenditures by object, that graph, so purchased services includes our open enrollment out number. So last year, that number was 17.9 million. And in 21-22, that went up a bit to 18.3 million. And then also our private vouchers are included in that number. So our private vouchers paid last year was 7.7 million, and this year it came in at $8.5 million. So those two numbers are significantly important, because it pretty much makes up the majority of that 29 million outside of our contracted services, which of course we have as well. But I always like to point that out, because even when I look at that number, I think, gosh, what's in there? And that's like, oh yeah, that's right. It's kind of lumped in with our contracted services. So and then we also had a new payment this year, which was unexpected. We found out when we, and I think we talked about it at the budget meeting last October, but that was that payment to the new charter school that was opened up in Howard Swamico, and that was $351,000. So we won't find out what that number is until we get our final counts in October. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. So we're trying to anticipate that cost probably going up. So any questions in regards to this page? Great.
So the next page shows just an overall view of all the funds in the district, just so you can see how each one ended the year. There's total revenue, total expenses showing almost $600,000 just put into the Fund 10 fund balance. To put that in perspective, it's 0.2% of the budget. So it was a small amount to put into the Fund 10 balance. Fund 80 used some of its fund balance this year because grants are expiring. That we knew was coming, and eventually this will need to be addressed in the future as well.
To that point, Fund 80, just as an overview, if you recall, we levy for that fund. So the 3 funds that we levy for are our operational fund, we levy for debt service, and then we also levy for that community service fund of about 2.7 million. So we have built up some fund balance in Fund 80. So now we are starting to see us eating into that fund balance a little bit, because Sarah had mentioned grants are falling off. She's referring to the CCLC grants, or the 21st century grants, which provide after school care and programming. So when we lose those, when we lose that funding from the state, when those grants expire, those costs are then moved into Fund 80, so we can support those after school programs with Fund 80. So we'll continue to monitor this, but this is exactly the direction that we want it to go. Is we want to start using up some of that fund balance that we've built up over the past few years. So looking forward a bit, so in a quick few months, we'll be back at the table talking about budget. So we're kind of operating in a few different years. So staffing expenditures, again, this year, they're going to account for about 78% of our operating budget. The final CPI that was approved was 4.7% effective July 1 of 22. for the 22-23 fiscal year. Alarmingly, the estimates for CPI for the upcoming 23-24 school year is about 7% is what they're estimating it at. I'm just going to leave it at that. ESSER funds availability. So as we had talked about in the past, we saw this fiscal cliff coming, right, in the next couple of years. So we saved as much as of our ESSER dollars. So we have the opportunity to plan for what the district is going to do moving forward. So we have saved up our ESSER funds so we can address the deficits that we're going to see in the next couple of years as we plan and do the work to make efficiencies. So for 22-23 fiscal year, we do currently have about $18 million that's plugging that gap and filling the operation deficit that we're predicting for 22-23. And of course, as we work, August, September, we are going to start now gathering our, actual salaries, the positions that have been hired. So that is really going to give us a good picture as to where we're really sitting. So that's what you'll see when we come to you in October, kind of what that future projection looks like. The enrollment, the September 3rd Friday count was 20,122 FTE. That's per our revenue limit, not to be confused with head count. There's a couple different counts that we use. So this is really from our 3rd Friday count. And this is the number that you would find on that revenue limit worksheet. And that was a decrease of 156 students from the previous year. And we are still predicting a slight decrease in enrollment for fiscal year 23. We're predicting flat revenue from the state, which we all know that's true. We had revenue freeze from the state for the biennium budget. So again, this 22-23 school year, no money is going to be falling from the sky for us. And then we also predicted an 8% increase in property values next budget. So with that being said, this last page, this is a notice of changes in our adopted budget. This is something that should look familiar. We started bringing this to the board. It's a state statute. It's required by the state that we have the board approve anything that comes after certification of the budget. So these are some of the transfers that have happened from January through June. You'll vote on these next board meeting to approve them. And really what this entails is things like here's an example for the revenues. That's ESSER funding. So we increased the budget and we increased revenues, increased expenditures for the budget for ESSER of like 3.8 million. So those changes are reflected in here. And then anytime that we do a budget transfer between a sub function, so a 110, which is instruction, support services 200 or 400, anytime we make those changes within the budget to fix it or to balance it, then that has to come to the board because it's within a sub function. So these are the budget changes. You'll vote on them next board meeting, and then we post those out on the website, which is per statute that we have to do that. So kind of a formality. So are there any questions? Laura?
So we've spent a lot of time together recently talking about these things. And you've given us a lot of information tonight. Two figures really stick out for me. One is a good one and one is troubling. I just wanted to re-emphasize the $14+ million that our district has saved in interest by paying off the last referendum ahead of time. I feel like we can't say that enough. I feel like this is important. It proves that we take fiscal responsibility very seriously in this district, so that when we talk about the hard stuff, we can say, we get it. This isn't easy work. It isn't easy to understand, but we take it seriously here in Green Bay. So that's good news. the 7% CPI for next year is startling. And I don't know quite how to even talk about that right now. But it's got to be on our radar and we have to talk about it at some point. And you mentioned it tonight, and it's important that we have that in our sights for the coming year. So those are just two of my thoughts. And I just want to thank the two of you because I know you live and breathe this all day long. And it's I could see that it would be easy to feel like you're being pulled under, you know, by the weight of it. So I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, and to that point, again, we'll be bringing, you know, to the board, like we have done in the past, the scenarios. You'll see, you know, the cost, you know, the cost projections, you know, whenever those come to fruition, when we actually get finalized. So we'll keep you up to date too when that estimate actually is final.
James.
Quick question about the emeritus program. You transferred 2.9 million into it. The approximate 29 million, is that a closed program, or is that 29 million the liability, or is it going to grow?
We would expect that to decrease as we move out because the program has been sunsetted. So the 29 million actuarial study, that's the estimated liability. But as people retire and collect their retirement, then yes, eventually that will sunset and we will not have that cost on the books anymore. Mm-hmm.
Brian, are you good? Okay. You're just a little box up there. I just want to make sure I'm not missing you.
Thank you.
Make sure I'm not missing you. Does anybody have any more questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, our last agenda item for tonight is item F under operations, the DPI school identification number for GBAPS secure detention students. And Vicki, I think that's you.
It is. We were recently notified by DPI of new legislation that allows us to create a school for our students that are currently in jail. Brown County does house students from the area, so not just Green Bay area public school students, but we as a district do provide the education. So this will provide us the opportunity to create a school specific for those students. Currently, we titled that school Bayview, but it also includes the students in shelter care, our students with disabilities that receive services outside of the district. This will allow us to separate the groups. So we will be coming to the board August 22nd with a motion to approve that we move our jail students into their own school.
Is there any cost associated with this, Vicki?
I am happy to say no.
Okay, is there any additional discussion? Brian?
These students would then be considered Green Bay area public school students, depending where they fall as far as budgetary impact.
Yeah, they actually enroll with us, whether they are residents in this community or not. After a period of time, and I can't recall right now what the number of days is that we wait to enroll, but they become our students.
Laura?
You mentioned shelter care within, and I'm noticing in the recommended motion coming up that shelter care is not a jail facility. So I don't know if that should be reworded. Or to report adult and juvenile jail students commencing, because the secure is different than shelter care. It's within the recommended motion, the last paragraph, because it's the district create the Brown County Institute of Learning to enroll and report adult and juvenile jail students commencing with the 2022-2023 school year for grades 4 to 12. And shelter care is different than the secure juvenile facility. So I just think they should be distinguished. Yes, no?
No, my understanding was by creating the school, we were separating the students in jail from the students in shelter care, which is why it's not part of the motion. Right now, they're bundled with the students in shelter care. But if we create the school, they will be separated. So the motion is simply for the students that are in jail.
Right, the shelter care kids will be reported at Minoka Hill, if this is approved.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is all just state reporting, really. We're already serving these kids. It's just how they report up to the state for accountability purposes.
Thank you, Josh. Is there anything else? Alrighty, that concludes the operations portion of the meeting, Laura.
Okay. We don't have anything under policy and governance this meeting. And then we have, the next item is agenda setting. I would just like to, if I may, just put a plug in to my fellow board members to stay up to date on the referendum informational presentations that are going to start being, that are already being recorded. And then also just kind of mention that we are having two large informational meetings for the community in September. One is September 20th at Preble at 6 o'clock. And then the other one is September 22nd at West at 6 o'clock. There'll be lots of other presentations that are going to be happening, but those two in particular are large groups of any citizens who want to come. They can come to one or they can come to both of them. I'm looking forward to attending and hearing from community members, their thoughts and their questions about the referendum that's coming in November. I guess that's all I have to say about that right now. So
Laura,
anybody else? Yes, Brian.
is it possible that we could get meeting invites as those are scheduled?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Could we get meeting invites as those sessions are scheduled, just as, or?
Oh, okay. Vicky. Vicky's saying yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa Bynum is here as well on screen before we wrap up. She
Oh.
needs to do the CARES expenditure report.
Oh, okay.
So-
Is that from, so that was from the last segment?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Oh,
So that was
yes.
supposed to follow up and that was my fault. Sorry, Lisa.
All
Hello,
right.
thanks for joining us.
All right, y'all, we're gonna back up a moment. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Okay. If we could pull up the ESSER expenditures, the other document. ESSER expenditures, yeah, there you go. And let's go to the very last page. This is that informational document that we look at each time. The last time, oh yeah, sorry, right there. The last time that I presented to the board was following the December 31st, 2021 claim. So that was at the February meeting, and this really document just gives an overview of the different streams of funding. So ESSER 1 is from the CARES Act, and that really encompasses both ESSER 1 and GEAR funding. And for that, you can see the different areas along the left-hand column where the funding can be spent. And then the numbers reflected there is what is claimed as of June 30th, 2022. So there's been the March 31st claim and then the June 30th claim. So this is a cumulative of what has been claimed. And then just to remind you on that the private schools also got a proportional share of the ESSER 1 in the GEAR funding. And they have claimed the majority, we have claimed the majority of their funding. There's about $18,000 left that they have to claim. And the public schools, we have claimed all of our funding at this point in that first column. Then the second column is the ESSER 2 funding, which is over $19 million. And cumulatively, we've claimed, if we add that middle column, we've claimed a little over $13 million. And then, of course, ESSER 3, we haven't claimed any funding yet. So now if you would just go to the next document, that first one that you had flashed up. It's a different way to look at the information, a little more detailed. So it will show you for each of those quarterly claims, how much we claimed in each area. So again, ESSER 1 and GEAR go together for CARES funding. And that will show you by each area. So the same areas along of spending along the left-hand column, and then the different claim dates. And you will see there what the private schools claimed and what the public schools claimed. And again, public schools have claimed all their funds in those two, and private schools have a little over 18,000 left to claim. And then if we go on to the next page, that says ESSER 1. That's just how I think the page fell through, but that is actually ESSER 2. And then that shows this, if you think back to the presentation that Angie was doing, she talked about that there's a little over 6 million left for public schools to spend. If you look at that bottom right-hand corner, you see that 19 million is the total award, but the total claimed so far is 13 million. So there's about 6 million left yet that can be spent for ESSER 2 funds. The ESSER 2 funds, they're not managed. We don't manage those for the private schools at all. CISA is responsible for managing their equitable participation in both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So those ESSER 1 and GEAR funds sunset September 30th, 2022. And then these ESSER 2 funds sunset September 30th, 2023. And then the ESSER 3 funds sunset September 30th, 2024. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry we missed you.
I don't mind.
We appreciate you being flexible and reminding us.
Okay. I think that's everything unless anybody has anything in it additionally. All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, to view the program again. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.